Hello, my name is Chad Isaacson, and today I will be talking about foodborne illnesses and cross contamination on food. So, every year there are about 6 million people who get sick from foodborne illnesses and ill prepared food. There is also an approximate 400,000 people that die each year from bad food contamination, salmonella from chicken, stuff like that. I think being able to prepare your food is crucial and very important for your daily life, whether that be to cook for yourself, family, friends, at work, or for an event. And I just think it's very important that people know about this and some general food safety tips. I myself have been working in the food industry for about 5 years now. And I also cook a lot for myself, my family, and I also cook for a lot of the Thanksgiving and Christmas dinners when I do show up. So I'm very knowledgeable around the kitchen, and I use these tips all the time when I go to cook for myself or for others. Um, Today I'll be discussing how to properly store it and checking expiration dates. I will also be discussing cross-contamination, and my last point will be about knife safety because they're the three most important tips I would say when it comes to preparing food for yourself or others. There's a lot of other tips, but I think these are the three best ones to know about. For my first point, properly storing food. It's the first thing you check when you go to get food, whether you're cooking chicken or pork or beef or something vegetarian. You always want to make sure you're not using anything that's gone bad or expired. So typically you want your fridge to stay 40 degrees Fahrenheit or below because that helps prevent bacteria from spreading while it's on the food because everything has bacteria on it. So keeping your fridge at 40 degrees Fahrenheit or below helps prevent the spread of bacteria. It allows meats to stay in the fridge for 3 to 5 days, which helps on storing it. You also just want to make sure you check the expiration date. That's also another good tip. Meat, when in the freezer, it can stay in the freezer for a while. Typically, if it's slabs of meat like chicken or pork, it can stay in the fridge for 2 to 3 months. If it's ground beef or ground turkey, it can stay in the freezer for 3 to 4 months. And then big meat items like steak, ribs, roast, those can stay in anywhere from 4 to 12 months. It does depend on how well it was sealed away. So just generally make sure nothing's expired and make sure your fridge and freezer is kept at the proper temp. Just make sure your fridge is at 40 degrees Fahrenheit or below, and make sure your freezer is at 0 degrees Fahrenheit. Just check expiration dates and just keep a mental note of how long something has been in the fridge. If it's over 5 days, it needs to be thrown out because it's got a very high chance of having a lot of bacteria on it. For my second point to make, cross-contamination. It's very bad. Germs on your hands when you're touching food, if improperly washed, you can transfer germs from your hands to your food. You also can use gloves to help prevent that, but you still need to make sure your hands are properly washed before grabbing gloves, because if you don't have washed hands and you go to grab some food, well, then you just spread your germs onto the gloves, which you're going to use to prep food. You also just want to make sure your equipment and countertops are clean. If from last time you spilled some meat juice on the countertop, you want to be sure to clean that up after you're done cooking. Otherwise, when it sits there, bacteria can grow, and it will grow and multiply rapidly because bacteria is kind of like us. It prefers a certain heat environment, and a countertop is perfect for that. So just make sure that tables and equipment are properly cleaned before using it, and to make sure to wash your hands to reduce the risk of spreading bacteria into your food. You also want to make sure that raw meats do not touch vegetables and fruits if they're not going in the same dish. You really don't want raw chicken to touch some fruits or vegetables that's going in a salad, because chicken has a high chance of spreading salmonella. If you get sick from salmonella, some people cannot eat chicken anymore because they just get super sick from it. You also let's see, you also want to make sure, once again, that your hands are washed when handling food. And you want to make sure that if you touch raw meat with your hand, you make sure that you wash your hands in the sink for the full 20 seconds. Otherwise, the bacteria from the meat got onto your hands, which you will be using to touch other food or equipment like pot handles or knife handles. So just making sure that if you're touching meat, you either wash your hands afterwards or use gloves when you go to use it. My third point, you want to make sure you use the proper knife and knife technique. There's a wide variety of knives. One of the first knives you might find in your kitchen is a knife that is flat and straight along the blade. This is typically a knife that you would use for cutting fruits and vegetables. There is also serrated knives. Serrated knives have a bladed edge, and it's supposed to mimic teeth. So serrated knives are really good for cutting through steak and chicken and meats. There is also another type of knife called a chef knife. This knife has a nice point and a thick blade because it can be used to cut pretty much anything, either meats or chicken. It also has a rounded edge for when you're chopping, you're able to make a slicing motion. Your technique also matters. When you use to cut a knife, you want to make sure that you have a proper grip, and I like to put my pointer finger on the top for when I'm cutting. You also want to make sure that when you are cutting with something with your other hand and you're holding it down, you want your fingernails to be towards the blade, and you can use your fingers as a guide, but also your nails are more resistant to be cut. And the last point about knives is a sharp knife is a safe knife. That is true because a sharp knife requires less force to cut items, and a dull knife requires more, which may cause your hands to shake when you're cutting something hard like a potato or something. So make sure your knives are sharp and it's easier to cut and cook in the kitchen. And that about wraps everything up. To go over everything, make sure your food is properly stored away in the correct temperatures. Prevent cross-contamination by just being mindful of clean equipment and clean hands, and then make sure you use the proper knife and make sure that it is sharp, because improperly prepared food or bad food causes a lot of illnesses around the world. It makes about 6 million people sick, and it kills about 400,000 people a year. But general knowledge on food handling and food safety is needed in everyone's day-to-day life. So it is very important, I believe, that everyone knows general food handling tips. Thank you. And these are my note cards.